Portland, Oregon may be America's coolest city. Annually named one of the best places to live and work, and home to one of America's most competitive racetracks, Portland International Raceway. PIR has seen the rise of a generation of stars, beginning with Al Unser Jr., winner of the first Champ Car race here in 1984. It has also been the stage for some of the wildest and most dramatic action in Champ Car history. Portland has seen thrilling finishes, including the closest three-way scramble ever. And it has developed a reputation as a championship necessity. Nearly half of the winners in Portland have gone on to claim the Champ Car title. Today, the newest stars of America's oldest auto racing tradition have come, each hoping to write his name alongside those of champions such as Andretti, Unser, Rahal, and Fittipaldi. Welcome to Portland, the city of roses, the flower with thorns. Roses are red, violets are blue. To win here in Portland, you'd best be sharp too. Each year, the centerpiece of the Portland Rose Festival is a weekend of big-time auto racing featuring the Bridgestone Presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford. Welcome to the 20th edition of the Champ Car Portland 200 at Portland International Raceway. The Pacific Northwest is famous for rain, and on Friday we had a bunch of classic gully washers. And for those fans huddled in the grandstand under ponchos and umbrellas, it offered the unusual sight of these powerful, high downforce race cars traveling down and off the racetrack in lots of unusual directions. Fortunately, today it is dry, though we have lots of clouds overhead, a beautiful early summer day, a chance of showers, but we're all going to choose to be optimistic about it as we welcome you to Portland International Raceway. Hello, everybody. I'm Bob Varsha, along with my boot partner, Tommy Kendall, at one of the few racetracks where he has not won a race. What do you think, TK? Is it the bizarre weather, the fact that we're beginning a run of 9 races in 12 weeks? The drivers just seem to be a little bit more intense this weekend.
Well, it's that time of year. The stakes are high in a sport where the stakes are higher than any other sport, and that leads to emotion. And it's not a surprise that the strongest personality in Champ Car racing, Paul Tracy, is at the center of the storm. He's been making some very strong comments that have raised a lot of eyebrows about some of his competitors, which added to Portland, where turn 1, with just a little bit going wrong, can be an absolute disaster, and it makes for a very uncertain start to this weekend.
No question about that. Let's take a look at some of the highlights beginning on Friday in practice. Shortly after the cars took to the track, Mario Haberfeld in the red and yellow machine getting a little punt from behind by our winner last week in Monterey, California, Patrick Carpentier. Now on board with Alex Tagliani as his world gets turned around by Carpentier's teammate, the aforementioned Paul Tracy. Now, racers enjoy the opportunity to get into their competitors' heads, and given the fact that championship leader Michel Jourdain from Team Rahal was disqualified from pole position for being a few pounds underweight last week, and the same thing happened to rookie Ryan Hunter-Reay this weekend, Paul Tracy was ready to fire back.
Well, I got one thing to say to all these would-be race car drivers. You shouldn't throw stones if you live in a glass house, and if you got a glass jaw, then you should watch your mouth.
Even one of the rookies, Ryan Hunter-Reay, said you got in his way as well.
Well, I don't know what happened with Ryan, but I really don't. It really doesn't matter because he was cheating. And on the subject of cheating, did Rahal's car pass Tech yesterday? I'm not sure if he passed it or not.
Tracy smiled as he used the dreaded C word on Friday, but in Saturday's second round of qualifying, he backed up his statement, grabbing pole position the moment his tires came up to temperature and setting up a confrontation with fellow front row starter Jourdain.
That's a message to all these naysayers down the pit lane that PT's for shizzle-manizzle.
A big advantage starting at the front, I'm sure, but what do you expect tomorrow in the race?
I'm going to show Jourdain who's the boss at applesauce.
Well, Paul Tracy has been in the eye of a storm this weekend, largely created by himself. Paul, you've never been one to be shy. You're very outspoken. But I suppose you might be most happy with that you speak loudest with your performance in the car and stuck this player's car on the pole.
That's the only thing that really matters to me is what my guys here think. And to me, all that matters is that my money comes in heaps and the kids love me in the streets.
Bob, when you have a weekend like this, when there's a lot of controversy going on, how do you separate that emotion and then get in the car and try and win this championship, which has eluded you so far?
Well, we're not curing we're not curing cancer here. We're supposed to race and have some fun, and that's what I'm trying to do. You know, I'm doing a good job in the car, trying to do a good job out of the car, and let's go racing.
Thank you, Paul. Black and white as normal. Now, as Paul leads from the pole, the man who might give him most of his trouble this afternoon is standing by with our Calvin Fish. Calvin?
Yes, indeed, Derek. It'll be championship leader Michel Jourdain, who starts alongside Paul Tracy on the front row today. And Michel, Paul's certainly been talking the smack this weekend. The comments that he made about saying he's going to show who's boss today, does that get inside your head at all?
Well, it looks like he's been having problems pretty much with everybody but me this weekend, so it's okay. We know how Paul he is, and he's been always that way.
Talk about the confidence factor. I mean, you're on such a roll. It really seems to be almost a transformation for you as a driver this season. Talk about how you feel going into today's race.
I feel great. The last couple of races, the whole year has been pretty good, but especially the last 3-4 races have been great. The guys on Team Rahal have done a great job. They're giving me the best car every weekend, you know, so it's just great, you know, knowing that you're going to go and get in the car and it's going to be always there for you.
Well, whoever will come out as the boss today, Bob Varsha, certainly has to survive turn 1 here, and over the years it's certainly shown itself to have some history of not being easy for these guys.
No question about it, Calvin. Turn 1 is a part of what's called the Festival Curves, and it's been anything but a party. Pick a year. How about 1992? With Scott Pruitt back there getting bumped around along with a lot of other guys. Maybe 1998. Watch the blue car coming down the inside as Greg Moore launches over several cars jammed up at the turn. Here's another look, and here comes Greg. This kind of thing happens all the time. In 2002, it took 4 tries to get the race underway as everybody scrambled for position into turn 1. Some made it, some did not, going straight through the chicane, while others got stranded in the kitty litter in a cloud of dust. Now there's one driver who's about to get his first taste of the Festival Curves in a 750 horsepower Champ car. He is 22-year-old rookie Ryan Hunter-Reay. Big weekend for him. Despite getting balked here by Paul Tracy's teammate Patrick Carpentier, Ryan Hunter-Reay went on to post the 2nd fastest time of the day. A spectacular performance, but when the car was found to be a couple of pounds underweight in post-race check, he lost that time. So he had to do it again on Saturday. Got all the way up to a career best 7th on the grid, but then the rains came and washed out any further chance. Let's go back to Derek Daly.
Well, Bob, Ryan Hunter-Reay has been one of the significant stories here all weekend. He's a product, of course, of CART's driver development program, the Toyota Atlantic Series. Ryan, this is by far your best weekend. I mean, everything looks as if it's on the way up here.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we came out with a good car this weekend, and you know, now it's showing, and look to have a good day.
Ryan, Paul Tracy made some remarks that I know incensed you and your team about what happened on Friday. I mean, do you choose to have a response to that?
I think he said something like, "Who's the boss?" applesauce too. After that, I just, you know, consider the source. You know, Tracy's Tracy, and he's one of those characters. But we'll go out and show him who's cheating today.
Thank you, Ryan. Bob.
Ryan Hunter-Reay driving for former Champ Car Rookie of the Year, now car owner Stefan Johansson. Now here's a look at the top 5 in the championship coming into the weekend and where they will start in today's race. Note, points leader Michel Jourdain will be outside row 1. Paul Tracy will be on pole. He's 3rd in the championship coming in. Look at the man in 2nd, Bruno Junqueira, his worst qualifying performance of the year. He will start on the inside of row 6 with a lot of work ahead of him on a very difficult track. There's been action at turn 1, but there's also been great finishes over the year here at Portland. How about Mario Andretti on Father's Day weekend beating son Michael? What happened was Michael ran out of gas while leading coming off the final corner, and Father Mario nipped him by an eyelash. Alex Zanardi, a 2-time Champ Car champion, came to Portland, mastered mixed wet and dry conditions, and took his first career victory in dominant fashion. And then there was 1997, when the man in the middle of that trio, Mark Blundell, authored the closest finish in Champ Car history, beating Gilles de Ferran up high and Raoul Boesel down low by 27 thousandths of a second for his first win. We'll be back. Welcome back to Portland International Raceway, where Champ Car's answer to Snoop Dogg, Paul Tracy's fans are out in force as we get set for the start of the Champ Car Portland 200. I'm Bob Varsha with Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fisher in the pit lane. Let's take a look at the track, Tommy.
Well, we've heard a lot about the festival corners at the end of the straightaway, turns 1 and 2. With the chain reaction that happens under brake, the accordion effect, you only have to have a guy miss his brake point by 2 or 3 feet, and you can have what looks like an absolute yard sale. You get down into 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. real rhythm required, not too much aggression. The curving back straightaway, turn 9 is where it really happens. It's the only corner on this course that requires aggression. Then you have to go back to threading the needle through 10, 11, and 12.
And onto the drag strip that makes up the front straightaway. The cars are on track. Let's head for our starting grid, powered like the Champ Cars by Ford. On the pole for the 15th time in his career, Paul Tracy starts next to the championship leader, Michel Jourdain. On row 2, Adrian Fernandez of Mexico City starts alongside French rookie leader Sébastien Bourdais. On row 3, Alex Tagliani of Canada will be next to Spaniard Oriol Servia. On row 4, Ryan Hunter-Reay has his best qualified position of the year, starting next to fellow rookie Darren Manning. On row 5, Jimmy Vasser, the 1996 Series champion, starts next to last week's winner, Patrick Carpentier. On row 6, Bruno Junqueira of Brazil has his worst starting position of the year. He'll start alongside fellow Brazilian Mario Haberfeld. On row 7, Rodolfo Levine will be next to Brazilian Roberto Moreno, the veteran driver in the series. On row 8, Mad Max Pappas of Italy returns to the Champ Cars after a year away. He'll be starting next to Mario Dominguez. On row 9, Tiago Monteiro of Portugal drives for the great champion Emerson Fittipaldi, who was honored this weekend by the race organizers. He'll be next to rookie Jeff Boss. And on row 10, Brazilian veteran Walter Salas. Let's check our Bridgestone keys to the race. The lap distance, 1.969 miles. The race scheduled for 100 laps, but it will be subject to a 2-hour, 10-minute time limit in case we get rain and the race pace slows. The maximum lap interval for pit stops is 28 laps. You may go no further than that before you must stop for at least a 4-tire change. So do the math, counting back from 100 laps in 28-lap increments. The first window for a minimum 3-stop race will open on lap 16. The safety car, driven by Stacy Kuhn and Tricia Hessinger of the CART Pace Car all-female driving team, has pulled off. The field forms up side by side for the start. And we await the festival curve.
Yellow start.
A wave off. A wave off. No start, but the lap will count. They'll form up to do it again. Let's get down to the pit lane and Derek Daly.
Because the festival curves is where so much of the action is, right here with about 4 feet from me. We're going to cover the early laps right from here. If anything happens, you're going to have a driver's eye view.
My bad, Derek. I knew you'd move down there to turn 1. You couldn't miss it as a former driver. Let's go to Calvin Fish.
Well, it's going to be tough to get through those festival curves, Derek Daly, but certainly Bruno Junqueira has his work cut out this weekend. He'll start from the inside of row 6. His worst qualifying performance since Vancouver last year in July. The reason for that? He got blocked by Paul Tracy. Paul Tracy once again the center of the storm this weekend.
Go figure. And you are on board with that self-same Paul Tracy, looking out through the visor in his helmet. Now, according to the officials, front row starter Michel Jourdain, the championship leader, was too quick in tucking behind Paul Tracy. So Tommy Kendall, basically, Jourdain was ready to concede the corner.
Absolutely. That's what caused all the problems last year. Last year it was Kenny Brack who says, I'm giving up the lead, but I don't want to get funneled back to 5th by being trapped on the outside. So at Long Beach, these two guys started on the front row. Paul had the jump on him there. Jourdain was the actual pole sitter, but did not get to turn 1 first. So a little bit of gamesmanship, but both of these guys are going to try to get on the throttle quicker.
Now remember, the Champ Car starting rule is different than a lot of other series. When the green flag flies, either front row starter can lead the field across the line. Paul Layton of Race Control is on the radio to the flagman.
Yellow start again.
That lap 2 will count, and the clock is running. But the form-up was not deemed accessible. This is what happened last year here in Portland, and it took 4 attempts to actually get the race underway. We await word from race officials whether perhaps they might fire a shot over the field, warning of penalties.
And that's really what has to happen. The guys are paid to seek out any advantage they can gain. And until the officials say, we're serious about this, they give them an acceleration point, but it's not, if you don't accelerate here, you're going to hear about us. It's kind of a gray area. And whenever there's a gray area, these guys being paid as much as they are, the stakes being as high as they are going to exploit that. So it's up to the starter to regain control and make it very clear what he wants and what he won't accept.
Riffing through our onboard cameras, we have a bunch of them. There you are. just next to the shift lever in Michel Jourdain's car, and we are told he has been advised to pick it up a little bit.
It's a little bit curious because I think the reason he's not picking it up is because Paul's getting on the throttle earlier. He's jumping the start virtually.
Coming out of 11 starter, coming at 12, straight away and coming at you again.
Oh, Adrian Fernandez goes wide.
Yellow start, yellow start.
Okay, boys. Wouldn't be surprised if Fernandez got a little advice from race control on that one.
Okay, so that time the front row was fine. The guys behind now are starting to screw.
Here's another look from overhead. Watch Adrian Fernandez in the green, red, and white car. He goes way wide. I heard the official say the front row was fine, but it was the guys behind shuffling around that caused that wave off. Actually, that wasn't a bad lineup in my view.
Well, I mean, Adrian was definitely way out there. I'm not sure what he was doing out there. I expected maybe there was some stopping and starting like we saw last week at Laguna Seca, and he popped out to clear himself, but that wasn't the case. I'm not sure why, other than wanting a clear view. I understand why he wants it, but it's also not allowed to do.
This is the backstretch at PIR. It curves to the right.
All right, start. Pack is already up into 10. You got 3 rows in 11. You got 4 rows coming out of 11. Going to 12. Top of the straightaway coming at you, start. Green, green, green. We are green.
They gave an early green that time. They were lined up, and look at them fan out. That's Patrick Carpentier in the player's car on the extreme left of your screen. Tracy Jourdain side by side through the first part. That'll put Jourdain on the inside for the second half, and Jourdain gets through in front of Tracy.
Jourdain, Tracy, Fernandez, Tagliani, Bourdais, and Servia. Long right-hander that leads onto the backstretch, a very important corner. There's one at each end that leads onto a long blast of flat-out racing, so you want to make sure you get on it. We saw a car go straight on at the Festival Curves. That was Oriol Servia. Decided discretion was the better part of valor. We'll wait to see if race control thinks he slotted himself back into the line where he should have in order to avoid a penalty. And into turn 1. Michel Jourdain leads the way. There is Portuguese rookie Tiago Monteiro running slowly, just coming off the final turn. See if he ducks to the pit lane, driver's right. Well, he'll stay on the racetrack. Michel Jourdain, the series leader, followed closely by Paul Tracy. I have a feeling that didn't go exactly the way Tracy would have liked.
Well, you witnessed another chapter in the maturation of Michel Jourdain, a guy who'd been in the series for 7 years without even almost registering that he was here. Joined Team Rahal, really benefited from being Jimmy Vassar's teammate last year, had the pace but didn't qualify up front. This year they really worked on that, and the guy has just blossomed in front of our eyes. There he took the hard way, stayed on the outside of Tracy into the first part of the festival, which is very, very difficult to do, but that put him on the inside when they went back to the left. And this is something I think, Paul, it's hard when you've seen Jourdain for so many years as a non-factor. It's hard to actually process what you're seeing. And the one thing that I don't think Paul has fully come to grips with is the outright speed of Jourdain. We saw it for the first time at Long Beach. He just could not run with Jourdain.
I wonder if Jourdain was so canny that he set up the pole sitter like a baseball pitcher might set up a batter. Away, away, away with breaking balls, and then brought the high heat inside. Another look at the successful run to the green flag from above.
Really dead even acceleration. They both went at about the same time. Jourdain inches ahead, maybe a little bit less wheel spin.
Watch the bright orange car of Oriol Servia. Decides he can't make the corner and goes straight on. Boy, that's a tough complex. Here's another look. Darren Manning being driven out to the edge of the road by Alex Tagliani. We'll have another view from onboard Sebastian Bourdais' car. starters got close together down into, whoa, and even closer there.
Interlocked wheels.
Let's get more from Tracy's perspective with his team manager, Calvin.
Down here with Neil Meek. All right, what did Paul have to say on the radio about the final start there, Neil?
He was a little disappointed with it. I think on the previously aborted starts, the starter had waved the yellow flag probably at the right time, but rather late. When he waved the green flag this time, the cars were still coming out of the turn up there. So basically, we weren't even really expecting the flag at that time. So he's a bit disappointed in that.
He certainly got to get his head down. Jourdain looking very strong in the early going. Let's go down to Derek Daly.
Calvin, somebody who may have dodged a bullet because of a mistake is that man there, Oriol Servia. He locked the right front in the braking for the festival curves, realized that, as Bob says, discretion is the better part of valor, went through the chicane, but he never lost a position. How can you make a mistake that big and it doesn't cost you anything? I wonder, is Chris Neifel asking the same question?
Well, that's the way that rule is written. The way they write that is if you rejoin without gaining an advantage. They don't talk about negating a disadvantage. And so that's something that I argued for years as a driver and never was able to get clarity on. But what he rejoined in 6th spot. The fact is, if there was a wall there, he probably would have hit it. And so, but that's just, that's one of those gray areas that he exploited well.
We saw rookie Tiago Montero parked in the pits, and the team not exactly flashing around the car. That's not a good sign. Chris Neifel, mentioned by Derek Daly, is the chief steward. He calls the shots when it comes to rules in the Champ Car Series.
Hearing Neil Mickelwright's comments, I mean, Paul really doesn't have a lot to gripe about. Maybe he had better starts before, and it was early and caught him off guard, but the fact was they were both dead even. It looked pretty good.
Michel Jourdain draws away another couple of tenths. The gap 1.4 seconds at start-finish. Jourdain to Tracy, followed by Adrian Fernandez, but the two front runners are beginning to draw away from the pack. We'll be back to Portland, Oregon, near the confluence of the Willamette and mighty Columbia Rivers in just a moment. We're back to Portland International Raceway. I'm Bob Varsha, along with Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fish. Michel Jourdain, after 3 attempts, got the jump on pole sitter Paul Tracy, took over the race lead, and he remains there as we work lap number 12 of 100 scheduled. You ride with Jourdain, looking back at Tracy. Look at the backside of the course. There is the Lily car from Newman Haas Racing, team co-owned by businessman Carl Haas and actor racing driver Paul Newman. And there was word earlier that he might have a problem. Calvin Fish.
Indeed, Bob, all is not well with the Lily car right now. Sebastien Bourdais reported that the handling had gone a little strange on him, and with the real-time data acquisition, they found they had a left rear tire pressure going low. They were going to bring him in immediately. They set up, in fact. Then they decided to ask him if he could stay out there for 4 more laps and reach that 16-lap mark, which puts him into the window for a 3-stop race. He's trying to hang on to the car right now.
And he's got the orange and white Visteon car of Oriol Servia behind him. Tiago Montero was in the pits earlier after slowing on the backstretch. He is now officially retired from the race with gearbox trouble. He broke a gearbox in Friday's first round of qualifying.
And if you look real close, you can see that left rear tire you can see the sidewall starting to compress. You can see it shifting more under lateral load. It's a big benefit if they can make it to lap 16, but safety obviously is the primary consideration, and that most recent radio transmission we heard was to pit this lap. Let's see if he ducks in.
Pit this lap, Sebastian.
Team telling him to come in.
Watch your speed. Be careful when you come down to pit lane under braking. Nice and easy here.
His braking might be compromised by that flat rear tire. Calvin Fish awaits him in the Newman Haas pits.
This is a big blow for the man who really jumped up into the points battle. Hits the mark. They just need to stay patient, do a good clean stop, try not to go a lap down, but that'll be difficult here on a very short lap. They're on about 1:01 right now, so good start. Minimum fuel, he's underway.
That's a tough break early on for Bourdais, for sure. We'll have to see where he re-enters.
No traffic coming behind you.
Sun peeking through here at Portland. We start to see shadows under the race cars, and that's good news. But as they say here in Portland, if you don't like the weather, hang around a few minutes, it will change. Earlier this year, Sébastien Bourdais took the first two victories of his career. Both came on home soil in Europe. And to commemorate the occasion, the maker of his driving shoes sent over a set made of gold fabric.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Now he has something in common with Olympic sprint champion Michael Johnson. Golden shoes. And here's a look at the pit windows once again. Remember, a car may go no farther than 28 laps before pitting. So the first pit window will open on lap 16, allowing you to go the rest of the distance on 2 more stops. But most of the front running cars aren't expected before lap 28. Now here's a look at Bourdais. Let's watch his left rear, driver's left rear.
You can see it. Actually, these cars are so stiff. As the left rear compresses, the right front was popping off the ground. It's like a table with a short leg. That's how that illustrates really what corner weight is. When they adjust corner weight, the cars are very, very rigid. And as that it only had 7 pounds, the spring rate of the tire is a lot lower. It bounces down there, and it actually was lifting the right front off the ground.
Up, Jeff Boss is off. One of the cars from Dale Coyne Racing. That looks like it is down in the turn.
See, exit area 5, or the outside of 5 there. And he's obviously stalled because the car, he didn't hit anything. So that is, I would say, going to bring out a red flag, or a pace car.
He has the visor up. That's the signal from the drivers to the safety crews that the car is stalled. Just caught the end of the spin there. And the yellow is out. Full course yellow flag, the first of the day. This is the number 19 car, Walter Salas, the teammate to Jeff Boss. We understand the corner workers are reporting smoke. Now there's Patrick Carpentier off and on. Rodolfo Levine going by. There must be fluid down on the racetrack or something. That's in the same area where Boss went off. On board with Michel Jourdain as he pits on lap 16.
I would expect everyone except Bourdais to stop on this because the window is now open for lap 16.
Team Rahal crew goes to work and has their man on his way. Derek Daly.
Tagliani is in. Paul Gentiloni just told me there is no need to race hard yet. They forgot to put a left front wheel on Tagliani's. I don't know whether it fell off the belt of the crewman or whether it's actually from the car.
Well, we'll find out in a moment. Last year, the Champ cars were plagued by a series of wheel nuts falling off, a function of the fact that the tire changes were taking longer than the fueling, and the teams were working
careful at 4, 5,
as quickly
and 6.
as
There is
possible.
oil on the surface at 4, 5, and 6.
Here, a crew warning a driver of oil in turns 4, 5, and 6.
I believe that was Neil Milkerite talking to Paul Tracy.
Whoops, Patrick Carpentier. Whole tires down to turn 1.
Quick comment, the wheel nut that fell on the pit road by Tagliani fell off the belt of Tom Hewitt.
Now there is a penalty if you lose a wheel on course. It happened in this race last year to race leader Kenny Breck. And it happened to Paul Tracy earlier this year on the Milwaukee Mile in Wisconsin.
Let's keep it packed up there. Good job.
I have push in the car, a lot more push than this morning, so I didn't ask for any wing change because at the end the car was behaving differently, and I have a little problem to put the power down, so I'll see on this set of tire, and if the car stays exactly like the first set, we'll go with +1 on the front wing, +1 or +1.5 on the next stop.
10-4, we copy.
Well, guys, Paul Tracy's start was nice and clean. I don't think we've really seen what sort of performance level Paul Tracy will have today because of the short stint there. He's really struggled when these tires get about 20 laps on them, so they can go to a maximum of 28. They stopped on lap 16, of course, so this is really not a true indication of what sort of balance he has. So no changes there. Just to wrap up the Bourdais story, the team firmly believes that he got hit on turn 1 going down into the festival curves, boys, on that first opening lap.
Calvin Bourdais is coming to pit lane. Meanwhile, a black flag for Walter Salas. We mentioned earlier that the corner workers were reporting smoke. apparently it's oil smoke, and that oil is now down in 4, 5, and 6. So Salas is being called in.
Go, go, go. Watch your speed.
So that's the second stop. We're looking at Ryan Hunter-Reay, currently shown in 10th place. Let's hear from his car owner with Derek.
As we mentioned, one of the significant stories all weekend has been Ryan Hunter-Reay and the American Spirit Team Johansson car. Stefan, is there a mechanical problem you detect?
We just had him on the radio. We don't know yet. There might be a clutch problem. We're not quite sure yet.
You just let it run out and see what happens?
Just told him to drive real slow and not use the clutch on the you know, while we're on the yellow here. So hopefully, you know, if we can cool it down a little bit, it might be all right.
Good, we hope so. Thanks.
Stefan Johansson, fresh off a third-place finish in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He is a car owner, but he is also an active sports car driver.
There's definitely something up with this clutch. I can hardly touch the gas, and it goes woo, you know, straight into the red limiter.
Ryan Hunter-Reay, a graduate of the Toyota Atlantic program, part of the Car Driver Development Series, the Atlantics, and another step on that development ladder. Also raced this weekend. Here's the results of the Atlantic race. Ryan Dial of Scotland, driving for Sierra Enterprises, won the race substantially over Joey Hand and Michael Valiente. A.J. Allmendinger, the rookie and championship leader, finished 4th ahead of his teammate Aaron Justice. And in the Barber Dodge Pro Series race, Leonardo Maya of the United States won over David Martinez of Mexico, followed by Colin Fleming, Dan DeLeo, and Germán Quiroga. Now there is Salas, who has stopped on course just at the head of the main straightaway. It appears his day is done. Sebastian Bourdais is back in. Calvin Fish.
Well, he's just playing with these pit windows, Bob. Remember, they have to change all 4 tires if they pit, and then it starts a new sequence of 28 laps. He almost stalled it. The key here was engineer Craig Hampson had to make the call as to whether he could catch the pack back up before they went to green.
That stop on lap 19.
And that's shrewd pit work by the Newman Haas team, because everybody, all the leaders, everybody stopped on 16. Their next stop will be 44 and then 72. Bourdais will stop on 46 and 74. During those 2 laps, he will run really quick laps by himself, hoping to make, you know, pull himself up through the order. I don't expect him to threaten for the overall, but if he's quick enough on those laps, he can actually make the best of a bad situation.
Interesting indeed, given that the drivers have been complaining that when the tires get used up, it's hard to go quickly. But Bourdais will have his work cut out for him. The car will be a little bit lighter. It'll be low on methanol fuel, but he will be on very used tires at that point.
Comparing to the 2 laps of the guys out of pits on new tires that are cold.
Good
so
point.
Cumulatively, he should be able to make up some time.
That's what they're counting on. Safety car is in. Race leader Michel Jourdain comes off the corner, followed by Paul Tracy and Adrian Fernandez. The top 3 went into the pits and came out that way. Alex Tagliani, Oriol Servia, Darren Manning, Mario Haberfeld, Bruno Junqueira, Jimmy Vasser, and Ryan Hunter-Reay make up the top 10. Ducking into turn 1. Picking them up in 3. This track is situated on a landfill known as West Delta Park. Back in World War II, it was the site of the 2nd largest city in the state of Oregon, a town called Vanport, which is a combination of the names of the cities Portland and to the north across the Columbia River in Canada, in Washington State, excuse me, another town named Vancouver. At one time, there were 80,000 workers living in this town with their families, building Liberty ships for World War II.
One wild card that's out there is the weather, and the fact that all the guys have stopped because of that yellow. They have to maximize, go the full 28 laps on each of these next 2 stops to make it to the end. If we get rain, they're out of flexibility. Rain means you have to change to the treaded rain tires. That will mess with those mandatory windows, and so if the wild card being out there, if rain comes on, all bets are off. Bourdais could still win this race based on how people game the weather and the tire changes.
And Bourdais is already on the move, going underneath Max Pappas in the PK Racing Lola. That puts Bourdais up into 15th place. Here's a look at the running order in the upper left corner of your screen. On board with Bourdais. There is Oriol Servia, the man who went straight on. First time we went under green into turn 1. Calvin Fish.
With these changing weather conditions, Bob, it's really been a gamble for some of these teams as to what setup they put on the car today. Certainly they go between the rain tire and the slick tire, but for Oriol Servia, they actually compromise a little bit on the suspension setting. So in dry conditions, he should be suffering a little bit, and then he'll be in better shape if it should turn wet. But right now, running in the top 5, he looks pretty strong anyway.
Now we go on board with Alex Tagliani, running 4th. Servia looming up in his rearview mirrors. Working lap number 22 of 100 scheduled. We'll take a break and return with more live from Portland International Raceway of the Champ Car Portland 200. Earlier I mentioned that Portland International Raceway is built on the site of a former World War II shipbuilding town called Vanport, once home to some 80,000 people. Nearly 20,000 were still living in Vanport on Memorial Day weekend in 1948 when a dike holding back the Columbia River was breached and the city was flooded. At least 15 people lost their lives, 12,000 were made homeless. Shortly thereafter, the town of Vanport was bulldozed. The parkland was turned over to the city of Portland. In 1961, it was turned into a park, and auto racing began on the park roads. Shortly thereafter, the city formed a corporation to build Portland International Raceway. For the last 20 years, the Champ Cars have come calling on Portland Rose Festival weekend. As we welcome you back to Portland International Raceway, Michel Jourdain Jr. is your race leader. Bob Varshall, along with Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fish. Glad to have you with us on a cloudy but thankfully dry day here in Portland. Just this weekend, the racetrack and the race promoters from Global Events Group announced a 3-year contract extension to keep the Champ Cars coming here through the year 2006, continuing a 3-decade tradition here at PIR. There's Ryan Hunter-Reay moments ago. It appears the clutch finally got him, and he pulled off in turn 9. Talking to members of the CART Simple Green safety crew. He's got a short walk back to the pits. Derek Daly.
Stefan Johansson is here watching our TV screen. Stefan, I know you suspected something was wrong. What did break?
Well, he just lost the drive in the end. We assume it was the clutch, although it was strange because he was doing reasonably good lap times there, the 2 laps prior, and then all of a sudden he just lost the drive. So.
And I know this was Ryan's best weekend by far, so I know you're starting to see that. What about Jimmy? How's Jimmy doing?
He's doing okay. He's 9th at the moment. Not, we both lost about 3 or 4 slots in the start, so. Around here it's hard work making up places, but hopefully we'll pick him up here in the pit stop.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Stefan. Calvin?
Well, it's been one of the best days all weekend, Derek, but right now down at this end of the pit lane, I'm feeling a few sprinkles in the air, so this is really going to be a test for these teams to make the right calls with strategy. When you get into a situation where there's wet or dry tires, and then you got these pit windows to deal with, it's going to be very interesting. Also, a quick note on the Bridgestone tires. A lot of the guys said if you get a lot of miles on them here, it's really a problem to keep the car underneath you, but they've really honed it down to thinking about how many cycles the tire has in it. That means how many times it's heated up and cooled down literally and put back on the race car. If they have a tire that's only got 1 or 2 cycles in it, should be good. So for race time, a lot of these teams have brand new tires or very little used tires. They should be in much better shape, Bob.
All right, thank you, Calvin. There's Mario Dominguez, shown in 13th place. Identical car. There's Roberto Moreno running just behind Jimmy Vasser, Ryan Hunter-Reay's teammate, 9th and 10th. Moreno has had a difficult weekend. Difficult 2 weekends, in fact. A big steering problem at Laguna Seca Raceway, Monterey, California last weekend. Team said he was hooping and hollering on the radio. He knew he wasn't going to be a factor in the race, so he was just having fun sliding one of these 750 horsepower race cars around the track. Down the back stretch, up to 175 miles an hour or so, braking only slightly for turn 9. Back to the race leader, Jourdain, pursued by Tracy through the festival curves.
I've been watching the lap times. Jourdain will run a lap in the 101 second range and then go up to the 102s. Tracy will answer back with a 101. Adrian Fernandez in 3rd doing the same. So the nature of this track makes it really hard to run really consistent lap time. Sometimes you'll see him always within a tenth or a half a tenth of the same time. Here, the long corners, the tire wear that we've talked about, the track going a little way, the cars tend to get loose and spin the tires. All those things make for a seesaw effect on the gaps between first and second all the way through the field.
Those of you who saw the movie Driven, starring Sylvester Stallone, built around Champ Car racing, you recognize some of those ponds and sloughs, as they called them here in Portland, full of water. Some of the scenes from the movie were filmed here.
-1 plus 2.6.
Jourdain leading for the third time this season. He led 48 laps at Long Beach, California, a race he came within 7 laps of winning. And then he led a car series record 234 of 250 laps on the mile in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to claim his first career victory. Looking out through the visor of Paul Tracy, ahead of the race leader Jourdain. Here's Derek Daly.
You might be curious what all these engineers and team members look at under these lavish pit boxes. This is Stefan Johansson's example. On the right side is the timing screen with Jimmy Vasser, the only car still running, in 9th. You see that's the highlighted car. In the middle, of course, is our television pictures. They watch the show. And on the left side is the interesting one, because these numbers here represent every car on the racetrack, and their car, which is Jimmy Vasser, is highlighted in yellow, number 12. There's a transponder or a telemetry sender on every car, so you can see every car in every position of every corner on the racetrack. Again, information they try and use to their advantage.
Well, Tommy, I thought we had the best seats in the house. I stand corrected. On board with Mario Haberfeld, very much a factor last weekend in California, but he's had a difficult weekend. Several offs on Friday, didn't qualify where he thought he should. Right now, he is running in 8th place, so he may be coming around. CBS Sports coverage of the Champ Car Portland 200 will continue after this message and a word from your local station. Welcome back to Portland International Raceway, working lap 33. We're at the 1/3 mark of the Champ Car Portland 200. Bob Varsha, Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fish with you. Skies remain completely clouded, but the track is dry. Calvin Fish reported drops of rain in the air earlier, but no sign of it at this moment. There is race leader Michel Jourdain from Team Rahal, co-owned by 3-time series champion and Portland winner Bobby Rahal and CBS late night host David Letterman. On board with Jourdain. Up to 3 G's of lateral acceleration pulling at the drivers around Portland. Tremendous braking G's. Up to 3 as well. Sequential gearboxes, meaning you simply push the gear lever forward to go down a gear, pull it back to go up a gear. No finding the gear in those H-style boxes.
And not only that, when they pull for the upshift, there's a strain gauge built into the linkage that actually cuts the spark to the engine fractionally, just enough to allow the gears to unattach or unweight, remove the detent, and it just clicks into the next gear. So they just keep the gas matted right on the floor, pull the handle, it cuts the spark for just an instant, and goes into the next gear.
Fantastic technology in these cars, revving to 12,000 RPM. Now, if you're familiar with the supreme technology of Formula One, where they rev to 19,000 RPM, over 300 spark firings per second, that may not sound like much, but those engines only go about 300 miles. These Champ Car engines, made by Ford Cosworth, will go 1,200 miles. In fact, this man, Michel Jourdain, raced the entire weekend on the Eurospeedway Lausitz in Germany at up to 195 miles an hour. Practice, qualifying, and the race on one engine. Then used the same engine a couple of weeks later on the Milwaukee Mile for practice and a 260-mile race.
You see Paul Tracy inching closer. He has cut the gap to under 1 second now. They've both been answering back. Very little to choose from, but consistently just shaving a tenth or a half a tenth off per lap is Paul Tracy.
Let's go down to the Rahal Letterman pits and Derek Daly.
And it's always a tense time when the car is in the lead. Ray Lito, team manager. You're watching Tracy close in and then you pull it back again. Any concerns here?
No, I think they're pretty evenly matched today. Michel's able to run the pace out front, and they seem to be pulling away from everybody else. So Seems fine so far.
We heard on the radio, Ray, a touch of understeer in Michel's car.
Yeah, just a little bit of understeer, that's it. We'll probably make a small adjustment on the next stop.
Thank you, Ray. And of course, the man he's fighting off is Paul Tracy. And our update on that with Calvin Fish.
Quick update down here, Derek, is the fact that Paul is very happy with the car. He's reported no balance change so far in this run. And PTO says he waits until the last couple of laps on the stint to really put the hammer down. But if he can get close enough to Jourdain right now and then put in a couple of storming laps, the pit stops will be very interesting.
Thank you, Calvin. I want to go back to Michel Jourdain Jr.'s car owner, Bobby Rahal, for a moment. Bobby, of course, the three-time series champion. Won here as a driver in 1987 and won back in 2001 when Mad Max Pappas was driving for him. Bobby is not here today. He is in Wisconsin this weekend, where his son Graham and his nephew Kyle, son of Bobby's brother Ian, won go-kart races in the Stars of Tomorrow program, the very first step of driver development leading to full-on race cars and hopefully someday to champ car stardom. So congratulations to Graham and Kyle Rahal on a terrific weekend in Wisconsin. And to Bobby, who appears to have a bit of a dynasty going. There's Bruno Junqueira, second in the championship by 1 point over Paul Tracy in third coming in, but starting 11th on the day. Currently he runs 7th behind Darren Manning. Manning, the top rookie in the race right now. Mario Haberfeld runs in 8th. Then Rodolfo Levine in 12th. Sebastian Bourdais now 13th. Jeff Boss 16th.
And this camera is mounted on Darren Manning's car. This is inside the cutout at the back of the rear side pod. You're seeing obviously the rear wheel there. Notice the tread shift left and right. That's the amount of deflection in the sidewall. As stiff as the tires are, you see the G-load up close. You can actually see the tire deflecting when they go through the right-hander onto the back straightaway. The tire tread shifts to the camera left, going down the back straightaway. Up above here, the black things that are blocking the view, those are part of the aerodynamics, what they call the flugelhorns, which create downforce and help kick the air up over the tire. And you can see catch every once in a while. You'll get a glimpse of Bruno Junqueira behind Darren Manning. Bruno Junqueira's teammate. Now we're on board with Sebastian Bourdais and the other Newman Haas car. This is the Lily Lola. And he had that early problem with the flat tire. Look at this big move on Rodolfo Levine. Made that look easy, and it is not.
Taking over 12th is Sebastian Bourdais. Let's go back through his race thus far. As Tommy mentioned, early problems. He started 4th on the grid. A terrific qualifier. He's the Frenchman from Le Mans in France. But he was brought in early, losing air pressure in his left rear tire. Got the car back to the pits, got back out, and then started throwing down moves like this on Max Pappas. And this on Mario Dominguez. And this most recent move, all of them down into turn 1, under braking on the Corona car of Rodolfo Levine. Look at how the rookies stand in the race. As I mentioned, Darren Manning 6th, Mario Haberfeld 8th. Levine was 12th, but he has given up that position to Bourdais. So Bourdais is now 12th, Levine 13th. Jeff Boss runs in 16th. Ryan Hunter-Reay and Thiago Montero are out of the race. There is Adrian Fernandez, still looking for his first victory as a team owner, the only owner-driver in the series. He has 7 victories as a driver for other car owners. But he's in his 3rd season running his own operation, looking for that first win. Having a great run here, running in 3rd place, less than 5 seconds behind Paul Tracy in 2nd. Working his way around the backside, now launching onto the front straightaway, a big momentum corner. Calvin Fish has more on Adrian.
Well, Adrian just reported to his crew that the car has now gone loose on him, and this is what we suspected would happen as we got over 20 laps into these stints today. That's really what happens with the cars with 750 horsepower, no traction control. These drivers tend to use up the rear tires first, so Adrian's just being told to hang on there. His lap times haven't dropped off significantly yet, but these last 5 laps of the run are going to be very important for Adrian today.
His 10th start here at Portland International Raceway. His best finish, 4th place back in 1999. Might be my eyes, but the skies appear to be darkening. And the folks here say when you lose sight of the mountains to the west, you know the rain is coming. And as Tommy mentioned, that would put an all-new complexion on this race. Stay with us. Personalized auto racing coverage highlighting your favorite drivers in headlines, standings, results, and more. Just click on Customize at CBSSportsline.com or on America Online. Enter keyword CBS Sportsline. Back at Portland International Raceway, working lap number 43, pit stops coming. And Michel Jourdain just laid down a lap a couple of tenths quicker than Paul Tracy. He's drawn the gap first to second back out to 1.3 seconds. Bruno Junqueira has also gone by Darren Manning into 6th place.
And these few laps before the stops, as Calvin mentioned, this is when Paul Tracy likes to make some time. This is probably the truest measure of everybody's pure speed. And right now, Jourdain seems to have the measure. Ran a 101.51 compared to Tracy's 101.70. Junqueira also ran a 101.5 once he got clear of Darren Manning.
And here's how it happened. You ride with Manning as Junqueira looks for a way by onto the front straightaway. A moment ago, you saw no one in front of Darren Manning. That's because Bruno Junqueira had cleared off. There was the move down into turn 1 from outside. Now we're working lap 44. We expect the leaders in on this lap. There is Sebastian Bourdais. Remember, we expect him to stay out and try to put the hammer down while the cars ahead of him pit. Race leader is in, followed by Paul Tracy. Derek Daly is up first.
And Team Rahal is regarded as the best team in pit stops in the business here. There are no changes requested by Jourdain. That's a good sign for a man who's been out front all day. They do have the wet tires ready here also. Calvin?
Paul Tracy's crew goes to work as well. They're also one of the best in the business, Derek. They're waiting on fuel. Tire stop is done. Jourdain's not going to PT beats him out. PT takes the lead.
Oh, but only just. Jourdain got sideways, getting slowed up. Wow.
And now they're both on tires that are stone cold. Jourdain was magic on cold tires at Laguna Seca, making lots of passes into the corkscrew, reminiscent of Alex Zanardi. Now, what went down there is they left the fuel probe in a little bit longer on Jourdain's car. They both need about the same amount of fuel to get from now till the end of the race, but how they switch that up, they take a few more gallons this stop, they can be taking a few less next stop. Tracy said, this is our chance to get in front of them. Let's see if we can get in front and maybe build a gap, and we'll have to pay the piper on the next stop and maybe take a few more gallons on. If Jourdain's able to stay right on him, you would expect that to reverse on the next stop.
Working down the backstretch, and those baby drops of water on the lens guard of the onboard camera. No sign of umbrellas on the front stretch grandstand as they come through the final corner and onto the straightaway. Look at the guy in the background, Sebastian Bourdais up to 3rd. Oh, and look around the outside, wheels locked. And a piece is torn off Michel Jourdain's car.
It looked like they were actually locked together.
The damage to Jourdain, it appears he's lost the fire. Full course yellow, second of the day is now out.
And that's actually going to benefit Bourdais.
Jourdain's chest heaving. Let's go to Jourdain's pit. Derek Daly.
Ray, I know you watched the pictures as it unfolded. Was that a brave move by Michel to try and go around the outside?
Yeah, you know, he's gone for it. We're racing, so that's fine.
Has he said anything on the radio? Can he get this thing going and get back in again?
Oh yeah, we're gonna get it bump started and get going here. We're going for points now.
Thank you, Ray.
All important points. Michel Jourdain leads Paul Tracy by just 8 coming in.
I think he just lost a lap to Paul Tracy while they're refiring him. Bourdais, meanwhile, comes in. He will not have the disadvantage of those outlaps on cold tires because the yellow's out. So I would expect this to benefit Bourdais considerably.
He drops back to 6th in the order. I guess not. He's just lost those aerodynamic pieces off the side pod.
Right in front of the rear wheel, you can see those dive planes, or flugelhorns they call them, have been torn away. The question is there damage on the right front of Paul Tracy's Lola?
Boys, they believe on Jourdain's car, it's actually damage on the front wing. They have a front wing here ready to stick on as soon as he makes a pit stop.
Well, you might want to clue them in that they've also have lost the flugelhorns on the left rear side pod.
And you see the raindrops on Paul Tracy's visor. Let's go through some replays. These are the two front runners leaving the pits, and that's how close they came as Paul Tracy barged his way in front of Michel Jourdain. A little bit of lockup on those cold tires going down into one. Here's another look. Here comes Jourdain, and Paul has them all smoking in his efforts to get out in front. Is Paul's crew happy with their work? You betcha. Now let's watch the battle into the festival turn. Jourdain goes down the inside, and the wheels lock there. Bourdais goes by. There goes Fernandez on board with Tracy. That's out the front that we need to be looking at it. Go on board with Jourdain.
Jourdain solidly alongside. Oh, see, I was wondering, that tells the tale right there. I didn't know if Michel had left room and Paul slid into him, not wanting to yield, but it looks to me like Michel thought he was clear and tried to chop back across. I'd like to see that again to make my definitive call, but you couldn't tell from any of the other camera angles.
Tire marks on the side pod. On board with Jourdain once again. Let's get caught up on those raindrops. Calvin?
Well, it's really started to rain down here, Bob, but only for a few seconds. So, again, the teams are on the hop right now trying to get the tires ready. I just spoke to Neil Mickelwright about Paul Tracy's car. Is it damaged? He said the steering's straight. We just think there's tire marks. We got away with one.
Boy, if he did, that is amazing. These suspensions on the race cars are fabulous at taking loads in the direction they're designed for, mainly up and down. You start yanking them in other directions, and they won't take an awful lot, but boy, Paul Tracy and Michel Jourdain yanked everything on that little schmozzle. Let's take another look from Jourdain's view.
Now the key here is after he's alongside, when they get to the left-hand portion of the festival, does he leave room on the inside for Paul Tracy? Does not look like he did there. He was diving for that apex. That's a bit of gamesmanship. Sometimes you can scare the guy by committing hard for the apex, hoping he can get out. Paul Tracy was far enough alongside, and you know Paul Tracy, back out is not in his vocabulary.
We are ready to go green once again, and Paul Tracy retains the lead over Adrian Fernandez as we go back to green.
Now this is where it'll become obvious to Paul, and we'll monitor whether there's any damage to his car, if the balance of the car has been knocked out, if he has any vibration.
Alex Tagliani moved over, keep Oriol Servia behind him. There is Jourdain, currently shown in 16th position, a lap down to the race leader.
Being a lap down, the best he can do right now is if he gets by Jeff Boss, which I think he just did. He's in 15th, but the next car, Max Papis, is a full lap ahead.
Sebastian Bourdais.
Meanwhile, that whole exchange has elevated Bourdais up into 6th spot, right behind his teammate Chuck
You
Hara.
have to tell me when you are ready.
He has that edge of the...
That is just what we want.
And Darren Manning getting racy with Bourdais. This is 4th position. Manning is 7th, Bourdais is 6th. Battle of the Reynard chassis versus the Lola.
We're getting reports of rain at Station 6. Now, if the teams don't know that, the first guy there will be Paul Tracy. everybody else has the benefit of a car in front of them to gauge. If you see a guy all of a sudden not able to get it stopped or turned, you can accommodate. The first guy through is the guy that can get caught out.
Jimmy Vasser taking a look at Mario Haberfeld ahead of him. That's 8th and 9th. Definite rain on the camera lens.
And it is slick. You can see the shine on the tires.
It's a fast part of the racetrack.
Braking hard at turn 6.
Tracy confirms.
Yeah, we got you. Make sure you adjust your torque map if you need it, Paul. You got your torque map to adjust if you need it.
What they're talking about with the spec Ford Cosworth now, they're not able to tune it as teams. They're given a spec map with 5 different torque settings that allow to accommodate so the power doesn't hit quite as hard.
Do your torque map, Paul, if you need it.
And that just shows you the years of experience of Paul Tracy. First guy to the rain with no warning. He might have picked up the shine on the asphalt, but he was able to deal with it.
Boardman Junqueira. That's Jourdain, excuse me. That's Max Pappas up ahead in the white Scientific Atlanta Lola for PK Racing. 14th and 15th. But Jourdain is a lap down.
Max Pappas right now, Bob, and it's been a very busy week for Max. He just returned from Le Mans, where he had a 5th place finish for the Panos team over there. He's actually going to be running for that team again next weekend at Road Atlanta. So he's running here this weekend. He has a test at Elkhart Lake on Thursday with this team. Then he's off running again the sports car, and then Monday, Tuesday at Mid-Ohio. So he's hoping by the time they get through these 3 test days, they'll be a little bit more up to speed. Very tough to come in mid-season. Everyone else in their mid-season stride and really perform. But Max Pappas again will give it all. He says he's the king of Portland.
That's right. After winning from pole in 2001, Max proclaimed himself king of Portland. He's been driving hard this weekend. He's one of the fittest athletes you'll ever meet. But racing here, then testing, then racing a sports car in a big endurance event at Road Atlanta in Georgia, then testing the Champ Car again. Max is going to be a little sore in about a week's time. On board once again with Michel Jourdain. Way back in 15th place, a lap down to the leaders. We'll be back to Portland. Portland International Raceway, Paul Tracy is now the race leader. You ride with him. Adrian Fernandez elevated to 2nd and Alex Tagliani to 3rd after Michel Jourdain and Paul Tracy came together in the festival curves, and Jourdain stalled his car. He is now running back in 15th position, 1 lap down. I'm Bob Varsho along with Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fisher in the pit lane, and joining us in the booth now, a man who dropped out of the race earlier with mechanical failure, but it's been a big weekend for Ryan Hunter-Reay with American Spirit Team Johansson. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Not exactly the place I want to be right now, but
well, I can imagine. Tell us what happened.
Just after the pit stop, clutch started going bit by bit, corner by corner, got worse and worse, and finally just grenaded. And that's it. That's how racing goes sometimes, though.
But you have to be happy with your speed in qualifying. Yeah, maybe you were a couple of pounds under on Friday, but the car was still quick here.
Yeah, 3 pounds doesn't matter. Rules are rules, though, and you know, we're actually gaining a lot of time. You know, we're working hard, and we're going to get a lot better as the season goes on.
There's your teammate running behind the MyJack car of Mario Haberfeld, Jimmy Vasser, in 9th place as they wheel through the festival curves.
Much like we saw with Jourdain at Long Beach, that really perked him up. Even though he didn't get the result from that point on, he's kind of been a different guy. Confidence is a big factor here. Now you leave here knowing that you were the 2nd quickest guy on Friday. So the difference between thinking you can do it and knowing you can do it, talk about that. I mean, how good does it feel going from here knowing that you can run with these guys?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's awesome. It's great for my confidence. You know, it's the highest that Reynard's qualified all year, and I'm really proud to have been there. Thanks to the American Spirit guys, and thanks to Jimmy and everybody for helping me out. It's been great, and yeah, that'll only help in the future for sure.
How much has Jimmy been able to help you? Obviously a former series champion, vastly experienced in these cars, on these racetracks. You guys get to spend a lot of time together comparing notes?
Yeah, sure we do. The best thing about Jimmy is he's a cool, down-to-earth guy, you know. Me and him are a lot alike. We don't put up a wall between us, you know, where a lot of teammates do. So it's real cool. I mean, it's great. We're like friends at the same time, so it's a beautiful thing.
Go ahead, Tom.
He's about as unflappable as they come. He had us rolling last night at dinner. I mean, that must keep things pretty loose. I mean, nothing really gets him too tweaked.
Not at all. He's a great guy. It's awesome.
Well, I guess he's seen it all. Now the next stop is Cleveland. You're familiar with that track. You raced and won there in Formula Atlantic. But we're going to be under the lights on a Saturday night this year. You looking forward to that?
Yeah, it should be a lot different. The whole event is going to be such a spectacle. It's going to be unbelievable. I'm glad CART's doing it, and I can't wait. I haven't been able to wait since the beginning of the season for it. So.
Now, during that last commercial, the officials asked for some replays of the pit exit where Paul Tracy and Michelle were racing out of the pits. Now, Paul definitely slid out in the fast lane, and if Michelle hadn't lifted, they would have collided. What are the rules as you understand it in that situation?
Well, you have to merge slowly. You know, if there's a car there, you can't pull out right in front of them. That's cheating. So Paul Tracy just cheated right now. He just cheated in the race.
Here's another replay, and here's what we're talking about. Paul is technically supposed to go forward in that lane to the right of the yellow dotted line. He was in the last pit, so maybe a bit of a judgment call. On board with Darren Manning. Up ahead, Sebastian Bourdais in 6th. Ahead of him, Bruno Junqueira, 2nd in the championship coming in. He desperately has to keep pace with Paul Tracy, knowing that Jourdain is well behind him. Junqueira has come from 11th to 5th. Derek Daly.
First of all, touche to Ryan Hunter-Reay for that comment. Watching Darren Manning, had a quick word with Derek Walker, his team owner, team manager. He said he could not hold Junqueira off because we saw Junqueira pass him earlier on. He said Junqueira was just too good and was able to go too deep on the brakes, and Manning couldn't live with him. Manning a little bit down on power, they feel, this weekend. But as you'll notice, we saw NTN bearings on this car last weekend. Air China now adorned the side pod this weekend, and of course he's trying to chase down Bourdais, Junqueira, Serbia, and Tagliani, who's running 3rd right now. But Darren Manning having a good run here.
Big group here going down into 1. Here's Alex Tagliani running 3rd. This is a first-year team. They ran very well in the season opener. Picked up a podium in round 2 of the season in the hands of Alex Tagliani. Let's go back to Derek for more on him.
Bob, I happen to be standing in Paul Gentilosi's pit, the Johnson Controls team. Tag made a strategic decision. They set this car softer than normal. They believe that this imminent rain, it seems to be imminent, comes, it could be to their advantage and play into their hands. But Tag again having a very good run on the podium as we speak.
Good look there at Alex Tagliani at work. First round qualifying on Friday ended prematurely when he got together with Paul Tracy and brought out a red flag. Well, to say he got together with Paul Tracy, let's just say Paul introduced himself. Thought Tagliani was going faster than he was and got into the back.
He didn't think he was going faster than he was. He thought he was going to get out of his way. Tagliani was out of laps and was on his way to the pits. I think Tagliani assumed that Paul was out of laps as well and just kind of turned his brain off, turned in for that corner off speed. Paul was trying to complete a flyer. A miscommunication, but tempers flared.
Continuing on his way, Paul Tracy up front.
Hey boys, hey boys.
Go ahead, Derek.
I hear that Paul Tracy is about to get a 5-second penalty for what we saw him do in the pit lane, and that caused celebrations here in the Johnson Controls pit.
Now that's a 5-second penalty not on his pit stop. Is that going to be served as a stop and go? He will be held 5 seconds on. Wow. Now if that occurs under yellow, that will be disastrous. As it is now, it'll probably drop him back to 2nd, maybe 3rd.
That'll be coming up on lap 72 if all goes as scheduled. You had a look at Paul Layton up in race control on the radio to that man. I believe that's Billy Camphausen, director of logistics for CART, and probably the ranking official in the pit lane, going up to Neil Mickelwright, the team manager for Players Forsyth Racing, to give him the bad news and explain it to him. Calvin Fish is there.
What Neil is doing is trying to get a clear clarification of the ruling, when the penalty will be assessed. Remember in Germany, Bob, that Mario Dominguez was caught out by getting that penalty there, not knowing it was going to occur. So Neil is now relating that information to the rest of the engineering team. They're going to accept the penalty. We'll try and catch a word with him in a moment.
All right, thanks, Calvin.
Now this changes the race for Paul Tracy. We're going to get another shot at it. It's not as clear from this angle, but he slides out clearly in front of Jourdain. Jourdain has to get off. He's already on the pit speed limiter, but he had to slow down, and then they get to the end and they both let the buttons go, but the damage is done.
Oh, man, and he was on that rev limiter.
And I can't say I disagree. I think that's probably a fair penalty, and this is the new way that kart's enforcing them. They have a lot more latitude to apply a penalty that fits the crime. It used to be in the old days, if you applied it, you had to give a stop and go, which virtually ruins the race. Here, he gained the lead as a result of that. Now they're going to give him 5 seconds. The race changes now for Paul Tracy. Instead of just trying to maintain the gap over Adrian Fernandez, he's got to put the hammer down and try to overcome that by running as fast as he can until the next stop.
Let's go to the rule book. Rule 6.7.27. In the pit lane, drivers exiting their pit box may not enter the outside lane of the pit lane until their speed is at or near the pit lane speed limit. In the opinion of the officials, any failure of a driver to observe the aforementioned procedure.
Our next stop is going to be slow. We need to gap. We need to pull out a gap on Fernandez. Do you copy?
His thumb hasn't gone to the radio button yet. Calvin Fish.
Well, I think they're trying to get that information to Paul Tracy. Certainly the other problem they have, just as we suspected, they did short fill on that last run. Neil, you short filled on the last run, it grabbed you the lead. You oversaw what happened here with Michelle coming down pit lane, and Paul, what did you think of the call?
Well, I think it's ridiculous. You know, obviously we're not allowed to beat Jourdain for some reason. And, you know, we elected to put slightly less fuel in order to try and gain the lead. We did that. We left the pit lane. Obviously, they're not happy with that result, so they're putting a sanction on us to try and hold us back.
The rule book does state quite clearly, though, Neil, with the incidents that we've had in pit lane over the years, that you must maintain that middle lane and leave the outside lane open, and it appeared that he did jump in front of Michelle there.
Well, I think you'll find that that only applies until the end of the 50-mile limit, and we're already past that.
Okay, well, there you have it, and different interpretation once again.
Well, let me get to the meat of the rule, Calvin. It says any failure of a driver to observe the aforementioned procedure that impedes another driver, in this case Jourdain, shall result in a black flag penalty or other penalty, yada, yada, yada. So the officials are using their discretion, a 5-second addition to Paul's next pit stop.
I found it very interesting the way that they didn't exactly share the full story with Paul Tracy. They just said, we're going to have a slow stop. And so that's Tony Cicali, who's kind of part engineer, part shrink. And here you have the pit windows. The next stop for these guys will be on lap 72 when Paul will have to serve that. And the interesting thing, at some point they're going to have to tell him the full story. But does Paul Tracy, it'll be key how Paul deals with this. Does he look at this as Jourdain's way back, I'm going to make big gains in the points? Chances are he might not.
We've got a 5-second penalty, a 5-second penalty, so we need more than a 5-second gap on this next stop.
Keep your finger on the button. There's Adrian Fernandez, who stands to benefit from all of this. Running in second place, as I mentioned, still looking for his first win as an owner driver. Had a terrible season last year, including a couple of heavy accidents that resulted in injuries, caused him to miss a few races. Not a season he will remember fondly. This year, he's been working to get his team into the situation he wants it in terms of technical and crew support in order to win his first race as a car owner.
And as I was starting to say, this is the kind of situation where the wheels have come off Paul Tracy's efforts before. How does he deal with this? Is it the glass is half empty or is it half full? If he looks at a big picture, this is a great race for him. Maybe if he finishes second or third, he does great good for himself. The emotion's running high. It's going to be hard for him to do that. We'll see how he deals with it heading into the stop.
Let's hear what his co-owner, Tom Anderson, has to say with Calvin Fish.
Tom, the word has gone out to Paul Tracy that he's going to get a 5-second penalty. I'm sure you're aware of that. How much pressure do you now put on Adrian to really try and close that gap?
Well, we haven't bothered to tell him that yet, Calvin. We want him to keep it consistent. Obviously, everybody short filled last time to get that, so we are watching the fuel real close here. But we got a really good balance today, so this is going to be pretty exciting come lap 72.
Well, that's a very interesting call that the team has decided not to give the driver the information. Typically, these guys want to know everything that's going on, TK.
I was just going to say, I would come unglued if I found that out after the fact. Give me the information. I'm a grown-up. Let me deal with it.
Yeah, in fact, he's not an employee. He is the co-boss of the team. Adrian Fernandez lapping 0.4 of a second slower than this man last time around. Paul Tracy almost has that 5 seconds. We'll be back to Portland.
Then we've had dry tires back to wet. We're currently on dry. Joe Barbieri, a special projects director here for Bridgestone Tires. Joe, if we happen to put wet weather tires on here for a start, how long would they last if it dried out?
Yeah, that's really the problem. That some of the teams ran their tires this morning when it was just damp and starting to dry out 10 to 12 laps, and they were still holding up pretty well. But the key is really how dry the track ends up getting, whether or not a team decides to go offline a little bit and cool the tires down again before they go into the dry area.
Joe, as you look at a wet weather tire here, what do you design into a wet weather tire? What do you need to make it do well?
It's a combination of things, obviously. One is to put enough channels in there to make sure the water dispels quickly as the tire goes through the footprint. And secondarily would be the compound soft enough to build up heat in the cooler conditions that would be there with the rain and water.
Good. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks very much, Derek and Joe. There you see Paul Tracy. You're riding with him, working lap 70. His gap over second place Adrian Fernandez is about 4.972 seconds. There you see the two cars on the track. Fernandez just crossing the line.
Plus 5 seconds. Check your pit board.
This is lap number 71. Next window opens at 72 and closes at lap 84.
Tom Anderson alluded to the short fill that the players team did on the last stop. He said everybody did it. I'm wondering if that means they did as well, or if they feel like they have a little bit of an advantage. Might be good to check with them to find out if they think they're going to be stopped for less time, minus the penalty, than Paul.
Doing the math from the last time these front runners stopped, they will have to come in 2 laps. The top 5 cars will be in within 2 laps. Sebastian Bourdais runs 6th. He has 4 laps until his next stop. Flashing through the final complex of corners onto the front straightaway. Still amazed that Adrian Fernandez's crew has not told him what Paul Tracy is trying to do.
Based on the pace he's running, I'm guessing they finally clued him in, because he's been running pretty close in time. Paul's been inching out a little bit, but they're running generally within about a tenth and a half of each other right now. So the reason that's important is if you're Adrian, you're 4 seconds behind Paul and you're 6 seconds ahead of Alex Tagliani. You think, okay, I don't have the pace to run with Paul. If they don't tell you, there's no reason to think that 5 seconds is important. You're far enough back that you can't challenge. Is that right, Ryan? You want the information. You'll deal with it.
Absolutely. You need it, you know. Got to put in those qualifying laps right now.
American Spirit Team Johansson driver Ryan Hunter-Reay, who unfortunately dropped out of the race earlier with a clutch failure, joins us here in the announce booth. We expect Paul Tracy in this time.
It's interesting, the dynamic, to give you some insight into what goes on in the pit lane, the politicking and so forth. It's very Machiavellian. Here's Paul Tracy.
You should be in the pit lane. Watch your speed in the pit lane. Watch your speed in the pit lane. Okay, we have a 5-second penalty. When everything is done in the pit stop, we will have to wait for 5 seconds. So stay cool, stay calm. We're doing okay.
Paul Tracy hits his marks perfectly. The team now, they need a good clean stop. Don't panic on this. Billy Camphausen to the front of the car. Tires are done. Once the fueling is done, then it's going to be 5 seconds. Remember, Dominguez stalled the car. Revs are high, waiting for the 5 seconds. Billy waits. He beats Fernandez out. A great stop by Paul Tracy.
Wow. I was counting 5 seconds, and Paul moved earlier than people before I got to 5, but my count doesn't matter. It's that of Billy Camphausen, who was the official holding him. So that 5-second gap was exactly what Paul Tracy needed. You saw that he and Adrian Fernandez moved at the same moment and got back out. And now more pit stop action behind them, and positions are changing. Ryan, I saw you giving it a fist pump.
Yeah, Jimmy got by Mario there, Haverfeld in the pits. It's great.
That puts Vassar up into 9th place. Ryan Hunter-Reay's teammate at Team Johansson. And as you see, there is rain on the horizon. Those treaded wet weather tires might well be a factor in the race yet. Here are the two Ardèche competition teammates running nose to tail.
Jimmy Vassar in the American Spirit car in front of the red and yellow MyJack car of Haverfeld.
There's Jeff Boss, who spun off earlier. Look at those clouds. We have 27 laps to go.
73, 74. I told her she was to be.
The ride with Mario Haberfeld in 10th. Jimmy Vasser up ahead. And now Sebastian Bourdais has cycled through to the race lead, but he'll be stopping this time around. There is Vasser in the 12 car. Then Haberfeld. And Patrick Carpentier, last weekend's winner, followed by Roberto Moreno and Mario Dominguez. Day hits the pit lane. Calvin Fish awaits him.
Team had both wets and slick tires ready. They saw the rain and the clouds look ominous, but there's not enough rain right now to make that gamble, so they're going to stick with the slick tires. They're pretty happy with Bourdais' progress. Remember, he should make a little bit of headway on the rest of the field by getting that 2-lap window.
Wait a minute.
Oh, Patrick Carpentier heavily into the tire wall.
I'm out, guys.
Be okay there, Pat?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Okay, just stay there. Wait till the guys come for you.
You can hear the frustration in his voice.
I think it's the same spot, that turn 6 area where it rained.
Stay there. Don't move
Isolated
around.
spot
Just stay there
before.
quietly, and they're going.
Still no yellow flag.
Yeah,
Now it comes out.
To rain, obviously, so just hang out in the car.
Third full course caution of the day, not including the 3 previous attempts to start the race, during which the field stayed under yellow.
Sebastian Bourdais came about 15 seconds from maybe winning this race. If it had rained a little earlier and they would have put rain tires on right there, he would have finished his last stop and been at the front of the field.
It seems to be the way things are going for him this year, in the most part, you know?
Yeah.
Let me check that. Our 4th yellow flag. Let's go to Calvin.
Well, after winning last week, severe disappointment here for Mike Cannon and this crew. Was it just cold tires, the slippery conditions, or something else that got in his way there?
Yeah, I got to assume it was. I mean, it's pretty unpat-like, but I'm assuming he got caught out by the rain. You can feel the drops here, but still got one more car in the race, and I think he's doing pretty good.
Seems to have been a tough weekend for you, Mike. You really didn't seem to click this week with the setup or the timing in qualifying.
It has been a tough weekend, but I mean, that's racing in general, isn't it? I mean, you're hero, and then you're zero. We'll be back on top next, right?
All right, mate. They won at Cleveland, boys. They'll be back.
That they will. There you see the Simple Green safety team working Patrick Carpentier's car. He said he's all right. Probably a good idea, that part of the racetrack, for the driver to stay in the relative safety of the car until the safety crew gets there. Let's take another look at what happened to Patrick Carpentier. It'll come from on board Mario Haberfeld's car. Watch inside the left rear wheel. There is Carpentier, and there the car snaps away from him.
Just the slick conditions. That's right when they get to the wet part. The boost kicking in. Traveling more or less in a straight line. A little bit of a wiggle setting up for the next right-hander.
So the crew goes to work removing the crippled race car. We'll take a break. Be back with more. 4th yellow flag of the race. 25 laps remaining. And more it appears as though the raindrops are coming. Tracy, Fernandez, and Bourdais, your top 3. We'll be back. Back to Portland. Hats and coats are on, but raindrops are not falling in any significant quantity as we welcome you back to the Champ Car Portland 200. I'm Bob Varsha, along with Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fish. The field is being shown 1 lap to go to a green flag. Ryan Hunter-Reay with American Spirit Team Johansson also with us. Do you enjoy racing in the rain, Ryan?
I do. I have a lot in the past, actually. I've been quite successful in the rain, but I've never driven these cars in the rain yet. So this morning was a bit of a taste for me.
Not even in testing, you haven't been on the Champ Car in the rain?
Not once. This morning we had a little bit in a few of the corners, and it was quite the deal controlling that 1,500-pound, 800-horsepower car out there.
Here's a look at our race summary. 2 leaders, Michel Jourdain, and after a tangle, Paul Tracy. 4 lead changes in all as the pit stops cycle around. We have no stops remaining. Clean and green to the end of the race.
And that's the most immediate challenge facing Paul Tracy, is they're all on slick tires, and so which in the dry you've got the maximum amount of rubber touching the road. The grooves are to get the water away from the tread. You only need a very thin film of water since water does not compress, it'll just pick the whole tire up off the ground with a slick tire. So any amount of rain whatsoever that covers the track, and these cars will skate like hockey pucks. So starting on cold tires on a restart, on slick tires with a wet track, is going to be Paul Tracy's, and he's going to get to the conditions first. Everybody else can kind of gauge off him a little bit. So it's always hardest to lead in this situation.
Points leader Michel Jourdain remains 14th outside the 12 points paying positions in the championship.
Going to go green this time, but green, green, green.
Paul Tracy is on the button.
And no traction control to help either, like years past.
Traction control and technology using electronics to control wheel spin. Tremendous help to the drivers. 22 laps to go. Order is Tracy, Fernandez, Bourdais, the top rookie. Tagliani, Junqueira, and Servia. There they are at the top left of your screen.
There was so much going on, we didn't probably explain how Bourdais got into third. He was running 2 laps longer on each stop because they extended that window early on. A good piece of strategy by the Lilly team. And both times when he made his stop, you got yellows on those laps, so he did not have the slow out laps on cold tires that the other guys did. He was making up spots anyways, but that really leapt him up into the podium.
We saw Sebastian Bourdais reaching down to the left with his right hand. What control is down there, Ryan?
He's adjusting his anti-roll bars, probably his front to adjust for less understeer, you know, so he gets out of the corners a bit quicker.
Now, never having run one of these cars in the rain, have you experimented with the torque maps at all? On the road courses, is it slick enough, or do you always run kind of the max torque setting?
Sure. Sometimes right when we get to a road course, or I mean a street circuit, we go to the max torque setting, which is the highest number, slowest kick.
Slowest
torque.
kick.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So as the weekend goes on, then we'll lower it.
In percentage terms, how much less torque is it down low? Does it just come in more gradually?
Yeah, it's like it increases the turbo lag when you decrease the number, the torque number. So you get a little bit higher, and turbo comes in quicker.
There's Sebastian Bourdais, whose season began with blinding speed. Pole in his first 2 starts. The first Champ Car driver to do that since Nigel Mansell, who came into this not as the Formula 3000 champion, but as the Formula 1 world champion. Bourdais, a Formula 3000 champion, stepping up in horsepower to the Champ Cars. Showed great speed, took pole, but then made rookie mistakes when either he or the team got him buried in the pack due to pit stop strategy that went awry. Bourdais would try to make it up in big gulps and wound up hitting the wall, knocking himself out of the race. Today, he's shown a lot more maturity, I would say, taking it when it's available to him. Right now, he runs third. One of the teams, in fact the Newman Haas team, for which Sebastian Bourdais and Bruno Junqueira drive, had some special guests at the racetrack this weekend. The Dream Foundation, through the Pacific Care Foundation, brought William Blackburn and his son James, William suffering from brain cancer, to this race to enjoy a pace car ride, a contribution to the foundation. And here is team co-owner and Oscar winner Paul Newman meeting William and his son, sharing a weekend at the racetrack with the Champ Cars. Kudos to the team for helping to make that happen. There is Bruno Junqueira in the Pacific Care car, an official sponsor of the Champ Car Series. Here comes Jeff Boss, no rear wing on the car, headed for the Dale Coyne Racing pits.
Which means it's laying on the front straightaway. And the yellows are out.
And the yellows are out for the 5th time today.
Hey, out.
Now, right before we went to that piece on Pacific Care, Adrian Fernandez was starting to close up on Paul Tracy. So it'll be interesting to see if he has anything for him on this next restart.
We're going to take a break. We want to thank Ryan Hunter-Reay for joining us. See you in Cleveland in a couple of weeks, Ryan. We'll be back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Portland International Raceway. We have just gone green on lap number 85 of 100 in the Champ Car Portland 200. Bob Varsha, Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fish. Glad to have you with us for what should be a dramatic finish to this race. Michel Jourdain Jr., the championship lead coming in, is out of the points-paying positions. He currently runs 14th. Paul Tracy, third in the title chase, coming in, runs on the race lead, followed by Adrian Fernandez and Sebastian Bourdais. If the cars hold their current position, Paul Tracy will move back into the championship lead he held for the first 4 races of this season. Bruno Junqueira would be second. Jourdain would drop to third. Calvin Fish.
Well, a problem for Bourdais under the yellow there, Bob. We actually got one of Adrian Fernandez's tear-offs stuck to his front tire, and he couldn't get it off. And really, it's a small piece of plastic. Here we see Fernandez going for one.
Going for P1. Adrian Fernandez takes over the lead, but Paul Tracy will try to counter, and he cannot. Great move by Adrian Fernandez. Derek Daly.
Watching Tagliani, who's been on the rostrum position the whole race long until Bourdais got the advantage on both of those yellows. Paul Gentilozzi just got on the radio and said, Tag, you got 17 laps. The race starts now. Get on it.
Tracy, Fernandez, Bourdais, and the man with whom you ride, Alex Tagliani, who drove the car that Paul Tracy now occupies for the previous few seasons.
And look at Adrian Fernandez checking out.
Boy, somebody lit his fuse too.
Well, I mentioned the challenge of being the first guy to get, when these kind of conditions where it's not quite dry, the first guy has to be a little bit more tentative.
There are a number of Mexican fans in the grandstand. One of the Mexican airlines has direct flights to Portland. I met a few of those fans at a function on Wednesday night, and just across from pit out there is a section of the grandstands waving Mexican flags for all they're worth. But their hero, Adrian Fernandez. Here's another look at the move. Got him on the brakes. Looks like Bourdais was thinking of trying to get by Tracy as well.
Another example of the new driver etiquette rules that Chris Neifel has implemented, where you're not allowed to defend at all up front.
Off the back of Paul Tracy's car to Sebastian Bourdais. Meanwhile, Fernandez is flying. Calvin Fish.
Well, Adrian is another driver who had some issues this weekend, and guess who it was with on Friday? Paul Tracy. He came up to Paul after qualifying, was livid that he cost him the pole position, and there was an extreme war of words that day. Adrian had the maturity to walk away from it, but he said, payback will come, Paul, payback will come, and I think down in turn 1, he proved his point right there.
On board with Tracy, looking out through his helmet visor. Oh, Rodolfo Levine and Max Papis are off at turn 1.
Papis is done. The left front suspension is broken.
Oh, he's got to get it off the racing line.
Oh, he just moved it more onto it.
Yes, he did. Left front wheel is deranged. Well, he's going to get it off, but he's not going far. Yellow flag is out for the 5th time in the race, not including the yellows at the beginning, trying to get the race started. Out of the festival turn comes Max Papis, who will pull the car off. This should not take long to get cleared up. Let's see what happened. Right side of your screen. It's like Levine going down the inside of Papis. Gets up on the curbs and gets into Mad Max. Michel Jourdain going by on the outside. Here it is from overhead. Oh, he went in sideways, did Levine.
Yeah, once he got inside, he was in too deep and was in the process of crashing, and Max just got in the way.
There's Papis. Will be retrieved by the Simple Green safety team. We have 12 laps to go. We will stay with you to the checkered flag.
This is going to regroup the guys at the front and give Paul Tracy a chance to answer back to Fernandez, or if he's in any kind of trouble, give Bourdais and Tagliani a shot at him.
That move by Fernandez just looked too overwhelming. Almost as though Paul had fallen asleep at the switch just that little bit. Interesting to see whether Bourdais, who almost took a shot at Tracy when Fernandez went by, tries it next time around.
I think I just sit where you are, because I imagine car aren't going to be too happy with us right now. I'm not going to push my luck, but I'm sure
Max doing a little housekeeping there. There have been some additions to this team recently, including engineer John Ward. There's Craig Pollock, one of the team co-owners. He's also added some technical help on the driver's side with Champ Car veteran Mauricio Gugelmin. There is Big Mo. Calvin is there.
Mo, as your third different driver in 3 weekends, a tough finish for the race today, but how's it been going with Max this weekend?
Well, Max is really our driver from now on, and he's done a great job. Has been a long time since he drove one of these cars. He just came from Le Mans, a great finish there. And now we're going to go testing, so we're going to get the car the way it will be good for him. And unfortunately today wasn't to be. He just got pushed out of the race now, but we'll be back at Cleveland.
Okay, as they mentioned earlier in the show, 3 days of testing should have him in good shape for the Ohio Tour, Bob.
Mad Max has a lot of fans here. They distributed those foam "We're Number One" fingers this weekend. There's thousands of them in the grandstand and around the racetrack, all supporting Mad Max, one of the more colorful drivers anywhere in motorsports. Max took a turn in a NASCAR stock car earlier this year, and as you just heard from Mauricio Gugelmin, he's doing some sports car racing. Thursday on CBS, the Amazing Race teams land in Amsterdam, where they'll wrestle slippery eels and get down and dirty digging for clues. One team ends up strapped to a giant rotating windmill. No kidding. Don't miss the all-new Amazing Race, Thursday at 8, 7 Central on CBS, America's most watched network. So Max Papis can enjoy a cool drink, sitting on the sidelines with 10 laps to go next time by the flag stand. He is Italian to the core.
And all last year, every stop along the way, people were asking us, when's Mad Max coming back? Very, very popular.
The yellow flag has been tucked away. Adrian Fernandez leads Paul Tracy and Sebastian Bourdais onto the start-finish straightaway. This should be interesting. Looks like Fernandez got a good jump. Let's see what happens behind Tracy. Bourdais not close enough, nor is Tagliani. Then Junqueira, Servia, and these two together, Jimmy Vasser and Darren Manning. This is for 7th place. Manning holds the spot. No more sign of raindrops. Umbrellas have been tucked away in the grandstands on the front stretch, but Portland is the kind of place where it can be raining on part of the track and not on others. We have word that Bourdais may have a problem. Look at that tilted rear wing.
Pitch, Sebastian, pitch.
You can see the rear wing is not straight and it is vibrating. I thought I picked that up on a shot before the yellow came out.
Calvin Fish.
Remember, he had that punctured tire early in the race at Craig Hampton, said we believe we got hit in turn 1, so this may be a consequence of that incident also with the rear wing coming loose, Bob.
Okay,
Look at that oil on the rear wing.
Hit your marks. Look at this thing, guys, but I don't think we can fix it.
Nope. Cut it off.
Talk about up and down. I mean, to rebound from that and be on the podium through a great job, great strategy, and a couple lucky yellows at the exact right time. Wow.
That's what I was talking about earlier. Bourdais came into the series like drums and guns, but just kept coming up short, not finishing races to the point. Then picked up 2 consecutive victories at Brands Hatch in England and the Eurospeedway Lausitz in Germany. Now he has swung to the bottom again. 4-time competitor at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, where his father drove this year. And there is Sebastian Bourdais' reaction. Another non-finish. And was arguably one of the fastest drivers in the world. Race goes on, 8 laps to go. There is Michel Jourdain Jr. He is up to 13th position now, 1 spot out of the points. With Bourdais dropping back, Jourdain might yet move up into the championship points before this is done. Next car on the road, well, that would be Rodolfo Levine, but he is still a lap up on Jourdain, who lost that lap after tangling wheels with Tracy in the festival curves. Here's Oriol Servia with the Patrick team in the Visteon car. The expertise of 44 years of Champ Car experience on the pit wall in the person of Jim McGee. There is Bourdais. Sure, he still can't believe what's happened to him.
Well, Sebastian Bourdais gets words of consolation from Kenny Seward here. Sebastian, I know these moments are so tough on a driver. I mean, you put together a great run back through the field today. Did you feel any bump down in turn one? Craig thought with the puncher, maybe you got hit there on the first run through the festival curves.
I have no idea. I didn't feel anything, so I don't know. It just seems that we cannot make a result in US for the moment. I don't know for which reason.
As you can tell, the words are short, the disappointment is obvious.
Craig Hampson, his engineer. Tough on these young drivers. Call Michel Jourdain, who got within 7 laps of his first career victory on the streets of Long Beach, California. The car let him down, and he wept in the arms of his car owner, Bobby Rahal. Now it's Bourdais' turn to feel that kind of frustration. For this man, Adrian Fernandez, 38 years of age, elation, sudden victory. His gap 2.5 seconds over Paul Tracy. 6 laps to go to Derek Daly.
Well, Australia 2000 must seem a long, long time ago for this team. That was their last win. Tom, this is a time of high emotion for you.
Well, you know, Fernandez Racing's never won a race before, so that was Adrian's last win. So this team is still a virgin in that department, so today could be the day, but Derek, as you well know, it's not over till it's over.
You're right, and I know Tom's mom, who's from Portland, is also here to enjoy the hope-for celebrations.
Let's go back to Australia at the end of last season when Adrian left there with a neck brace in the ambulance after that horrendous start line incident. There was lots of speculation. He'd been hurt earlier at Vancouver.
5 laps to go, 5 laps.
Would he hang up his helmet? It would not have surprised me at all, and I think it was seriously under consideration, but he came back and says, no, I still have the fire. And he's been competitive this year, but they haven't had much in the way of results. But they did feel like they were on the pace, and so this will be the first win by an owner driver since Bobby Rahal in '92, I believe.
1992 at Nazareth Speedway. Calvin Fish.
Quick update on Paul Tracy. The team feels that Paul is down on straightaway speed. They're looking at the telemetry. They're not seeing the straight line numbers that they saw earlier in the race. So maybe that bump with Jourdain damaged some of the bodywork that's actually handicapped him with some extra drag, Bob.
Can't see anything from this onboard camera that looks amiss.
That would explain why Adrian pulled up without much fanfare and just drove right around him on the front straightaway.
Alex Tagliani now up into third. Another podium for the Canadian and his young Rocket Sports team.
Bourdais demise puts him right behind the guy who he had the big altercation with on Friday.
There's Tagliani.
And he is closing on Paul Tracy. It was 2 seconds last lap. It's down to 1.6 seconds from Tagliani to second place Paul Tracy.
3 laps to go next time by. The gap Tracy to Tagliani, 1.6 seconds. Here is Bruno Junqueira. Remember, he started 11th. He is now up into 4th, salvaging tremendous points in the championship. Bruno said this weekend that he was blocked by Paul Tracy during the course of the weekend, and he wanted to get up to Tracy and give him a taste of his own medicine. He may yet do that.
That's the other side of that knife when you cuts both ways. When you throw down the gauntlet, talk a little bit of smack, you could have everyone gunning for you. If they can't catch you, they can't do much about it. But if you give them an opportunity,
don't expect much mercy. Look at Oriol Servia running 5th. There's Darren Manning from Walker Racing. Seems like this team adds sponsorship at every race of the calendar. New sponsorship this weekend from Air China. He is up into 6th spot, the top rookie in the field, followed by the veteran, the 96 Series champion Jimmy Vasser in 7th. 2 laps to go next time by, and the umbrellas are back out. Getting reports of rain. There you see it splattering on the lens cover. You ride with Mario Haberfeld in 8th place behind Vassar.
Fernandez pulls away, 3.7-second gap to Tracy, but Tagliani pulled in a little bit more, 1.5 seconds behind.
There's Roberto Moreno, who's finished 2nd at this track on a couple of occasions. He currently runs 9th. Just behind him on the road is his teammate, last year's Rookie of the Year, Mario Dominguez, who won on the streets of Surfers Paradise, and he has taken a big step up in performance this year, race to race. A lot of that may be down to having an experienced teammate for the first time in Roberto Moreno. That team is dealing with an emotional roller coaster this weekend. One of his crewmen welcomed a new baby into the world this week, while their team principal, Keith Wiggins, and his wife sadly lost a 2.5-month-old baby boy. Our thoughts go out to the Erdes competition team this weekend.
There's the gap. 1.3 seconds that lap from Tagliani, from Tracy back to Alex Tagliani, and the white flag waves.
Earlier this year at Long Beach, when Paul Tracy grabbed a sudden victory when Michel Jourdain's car broke, Tracy moved from 2nd to 1st. Next to him on the podium in 2nd place was Adrian Fernandez. Last week on the Monterey Peninsula at Laguna Seca, we saw our first podium of the year that did not have at least one Mexican driver on it. Well, this man, Adrian Fernandez, is going to make up for that and then some. A terrific businessman. He's been with sponsors Tecate and Quaker State for a long, long time. And now he is going to give them victory. And look at the rain now starting to come down. We may just get this in. Off the final corner, onto the front straightaway. 47 races since his last win, and for the first time as a driver owner in the series, Adrian Fernandez picks up his 8th career win, but I would guess by far the most important. There you see the crew, hugs and smiles all around. Tom Anderson in the black sweater. There's Paul Tracy giving props to Adrian Fernandez. CBS Sports coverage of the Champ Car Portland 200 will continue after this message and a word from your local station.
Welcome back to Portland International Raceway. It is margaritas for everybody tonight. Adrian Fernandez, for the first time since Australia 2000. Adrian, a victory. That race just about had about everything. You got to be so thrilled.
Absolutely. We had a fantastic car. The best set of tires was at the end. Great race. Great to race with Paul and Michel. They were very fast at the beginning. My car was not perfect, and I was just trying to hang up with them and pushing as hard as I can. The guys behind me, we were pulling away from them. But then my last pit stop really put alive my car. It was so fast. It was incredible. And Paul made a little mistake here into the last corner, and took advantage of that and passed him into one. Fantastic feeling. First win for us as an owner.
Adrian, we saw you pull the move on Tracy. You seem to come from a long way behind in the braking zone. I mean, that was a pretty scary move to try and make that late in the race.
Well, my car was working well, and it was late on the race, but it's a now or never. You know, if at the beginning I was a little bit careful with the rain and things like that, but I say, you know, right now he made a mistake. If I don't take it, I will blame myself forever. And I'm glad I did it. I went in for the inside, and PT really, you know, hold his line, and that was fantastic. I tell you, at the end we were pushing so hard. We're doing very fast laps, so it was really good.
You're now 5th in points. Your owner will also be happy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And thank you to Tom, to everybody. Tom is here, my honey Michelle, and my family. Thank you.
He's almost in tears here. Calvin?
Paul Tracy 2nd. You grabbed the points lead, but I know you're disappointed, mate.
I'm disappointed for my team. You know, I led the race there, and I made a mistake, and then I really just blew it. And you know, let Adrian get by me. I ran wide on the brakes and got it out in the marbles, and Adrian got a run on me. But we got the points lead. This isn't a great track for me, and I'm happy for Adrian. Adrian's been pushing hard to get a win for his team, his new team, and for him to get his first win, it's great for his sponsors and the whole series. So I got to thank everybody. The Ford engine was great, and the Bridgestones were great today, and the weather was a little bit tricky. It was raining once in a while, but just disappointed in myself.
Talk about the incident with Michel in the middle part of the race. I mean, you got the break with the pit stop. Ultimately, they penalized you for that. But talk about the move down in the festival curves where he tried to drive around the outside of you.
Well, I mean, it's just one of those things. I saw him coming, and we were on cold tires, and he made a big lunge from a long way back, and I thought he was going to hit me, and I gave him room, and then we went into the corner side by side, and then he just turned right across me. I gave him room on the entry when I wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not, and there was no room in return at the next corner, and I was already there, and he turned across the front of me, and that was it. So I mean, it's just one of those racing deals, and we took a 5-second penalty for it, so I really had to get my finger out and push the tires real hard to pull out a lead, and we were able to pull out the lead. But ultimately at the end, I made the mistake, and we weren't fast, and Adrian was faster than me at the end anyway, so it was a good win for him.
Well, still a great run for PT here today. Let's go over to Derek.
Alex Tagliani here in celebration with Bronte, his wife, John Gentilozzi, Paul's son. Tag, you were on the rostrum all day, but got into a real fight with Bourdais that got settled with a mechanical failure by him.
Yeah, it was, I mean, the New Manas team did a great strategy, but, you know, for us, we had a very competitive car today. Couple of times on early restarts when the tires were really low, the car was not able to bring a temperature really quickly, but once I was going, the car was faster and faster and faster. So there's a lot of things that we learned today, but great stop from the crew. I mean, it was a team effort, I guess.
Absolutely. Well done, Tag. Go shake some champagne over there. Thank you.
Great finish for the top three. In fact, the best finish for each of Adrian Fernandez, Paul Tracy, and Alex Tagliani ever at Portland. And as you see, Paul Tracy is the new points leader. We'll be back. Finishers making their lap of honor. Adrian Fernandez on the left, Paul Tracy on the right. Here's a look at the final results. First victory as a car owner for Adrian Fernandez, 8th of his career. Paul Tracy and Alex Tagliani pick up their best ever personal performances at Portland. Bruno Junqueira drove from 11th to 4th, picking up good points. And back in 12th place, Michel Jourdain salvaged 1 championship point from the day. We'll be back with more post-race celebration from Portland.
Bruno Junqueira has his 6th top 5 of this season, and Bruno, starting where you did, tough to make an impression, but a 4th place finish must make you happy today.
Yeah, I'm happy. I think all the Pacific Air team did a great job on the pit stops. I passed some guys on the track, maybe I was the only one, and finish 4th is good from where we start, and you keep scoring points in the championship, but let's see if we can get our first win next race.
Well, he wants to win very badly. Let's go down to Derek.
Michel Jourdain in the debrief here with Scott Remke and Brent Maurer. Michel, that was a pretty brave move you put on Tracy. It didn't quite come off.
Well, I think I had him clean, you know. I mean, I was completely in front of him, almost, you know. And I don't know. I think I was the last one he missed to hit in the weekend, and I mean, I got him good clean in the start, and I think I had him clean there, you know. And he just kept pushing and pushing and hitting me, and then until he finally spun me, you know, and then the car got pretty damaged, and we obviously once you're a lap down, you're not going to get in the middle of anybody's race, you know.
But at least, Michel, if it's a bad race, at least you're still in the title hunt for the championship, and again keeps that consistency alive with another point.
I know, but it's so many good races, too many points that we've missed with good races, you know, and it doesn't feel very good, you know, especially the whole weekend we were very fast, and in the race the car was just fantastic. I feel very bad for my guys, you know. They're doing the best job, they're for sure giving me the best car, and we haven't gotten all the wins that I think they deserve.
Thank you, Michel. I'm sure, Bob, you can hear it in his voice.
Very tough day for Michel Jourdain. Well, we beat the rain. Tommy Kendall, your final thoughts on the day?
I'll tell you what, it was settling into fairly uneventful, but then the rain came, and that's just kind of the way the season's shaping up. We've got the closest championship battle in years. Just when someone kind of gets a little bit of momentum going, someone gets kicked down a couple knots, somebody else reemerges as the new guy. So it's just twisting and turning. It's like a great mystery to me.
I'll go along with that. For Tommy Kendall, Derek Daly, and Calvin Fish, I'm Bob Varsha saying so long from Portland International Raceway, where Adrian Fernandez has won the Champ Car Portland 200. CBS Sports coverage of the Bridgestone Presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford continues July 6th at 3:30 Eastern Time with the Champ Car Cleveland Grand Prix. Next week, it's the sports cars from Road Atlanta. And a week later, Champ Cars in Cleveland. We'll see you then. This has been a presentation of CBS Sports.